In this video, we are going to revisit some of the worst weapons from Chapter 2 of Fortnite. Of course, Chapter 2 is known for having some absolutely loaded weapons and loaded seasons like Chapter 2 Season 2 and Chapter 2 Season 4. But on the flip side, there were plenty of seasons that were absolutely lacking in weapons, and that is what we're going to look at today. If you like this style of video, go check out the rest of the series. I've done this for Chapter 5, Chapter 4, and Chapter 3 already, and once we finish Chapter 2, we will be on to, of course, Chapter 1. If you go on to enjoy this video, be sure to leave it a like and use code TYFRYZ in the Fortnite item shop. I have to give a quick honorable mention to the gray RPG and the gray bolt action sniper. They would be on this list except for the fact that they were barely in the season. They were only in for like a couple hours each. So I really just can't put them on this list. But if I was ignoring that, yeah, they would be here. With all that being said, let's finally get into it. And as we've done with the rest of this series, we will start at Chapter 2 Season 1 and we will move chronologically throughout the seasons, ending at Chapter 2 Season 8. And I really only have one bad weapon from Chapter 2 Season 1. I don't even know if you could consider it a weapon. It's the bandage bazooka. This was actually like the first item of its time to really take up 2 weapon slots to my knowledge. And I remember this being like a big deal when it came out. Everyone was like, oh, you have an item that takes up 2 weapon slots. It's going to be amazing, right? You basically have infinite bandages. Problem is, bandages aren't really that good. And the slurp bazooka is everything that it should have been, right? Let's be honest. The slurp bazooka is 10 times better. Of course, by that, I mean the exotic chug cannon. So to me, this thing kind of fell flat on its face. I mean, when it came out, it was a really cool thing and it was really unique for like a week, and then once everybody realized it was pretty bad, there was no point in ever taking it, and it really was not worth 2 item slots. The chug cannon, on the other hand, is absolutely worth the 2 slots, so yeah. But that's really all I have for Chapter 2 Season 1. The rest of that season, I would say, was pretty well balanced and there were a lot of solid weapons. But now we move on to Chapter 2 Season 2. If you saw my video where I looked over some of the best weapons from Chapter 2, you'll know that that season was absolutely stacked with weapons. It felt like everything was strong. But there were a couple items that were really lacking. One of those being the creepin' cardboard. I was really between the creeping cardboard or the proximity mine to put here, but I think the proximity mine at least does damage. It can be semi-useful. The creeping cardboard is just a terrible idea. They brought it back in Chapter 5 Season 1 as a mythic, and it was just awful. There was legitimately no reason to ever take the creeping cardboard. I don't think anybody was ever fooled by a cardboard box that was sitting there. It was clunky. It was just not good, right? That's all I got to say about it. But there is actually another weapon from Chapter 2 Season 2 I think belongs here. That's the Kingsman umbrella. And contrary to popular opinion, this is actually not a collaboration item. A lot of people think that this is a collab item. It is actually not. Go on the Fortnite wiki. It says that it is not an official collaboration item. To be honest with you, I think the Kingsman umbrella might have just been a little bit ahead of its time. If this thing had released in 0 build, like if this thing came out today, I would say it might be a little bit better. But back then, like there's no need to have something that is going to deflect bullets, right? You just build. That does it for you. And the melee ability was nothing crazy. I personally do not like melee weapons, and especially in a chapter like Chapter 2, specifically Season 2, where you had some of the strongest close quarter weapons of all time. Midas's drum gun, Brutus's minigun, you had the spaz. There was just no reason to ever pull out a melee weapon, right? You were just going to get one-shotted. It was decent in like very niche situations. Maybe if you get in someone's box, do like that big wind-up swing and you can hit them. And it can stop you from taking fall damage, right? Because it's an umbrella, of course. But other than that, yeah, I would not take this thing at all. It was barely in the game for like a couple weeks and has not returned since, and at this point probably will never come back. And those are the only things I have for Chapter 2 Season 2, and interestingly enough, I actually have nothing for Chapter 2 Season 3. But what I do have is Black Panther's kinetic armor for Chapter 2 Season 4. I don't think that this needs any explanation, really. I think it was like unanimously agreed upon, right, that Black Panther's kinetic armor was the worst mythic superpower in Chapter 2 Season 4. They did the Black Panther dirty here. I'm hoping in Chapter 5 Season 4, they're going to make the Black Panther mythic, or I guess not Black Panther, but whatever the tier 100 skin is, right, make that mythic a little bit better than this one. It was just a bad idea. It really didn't work at all. It had essentially 2 abilities. The first ability was like it would create an armor which would reduce the damage that you would take, which is pretty decent. I mean, it only lasts for 5 seconds, so nothing crazy. So it would reduce the damage by 20. So right, if you got hit by a scar for 36, you would obviously only take 16 damage. And then the second ability was like after that 5 seconds, it would basically send out like a shockwave pulse, which was supposed to be like an explosion, but it never really worked. I was really between Storm's Whirlwind Blast or of course Black Panther's kinetic armor, but I went with the kinetic armor because I felt like it was basically more agreed upon the fact that this was absolutely terrible. At least with Storm's Whirlwind Blast, if you're on high ground or something, you could basically knock somebody off high ground and kill them. That's really all that was useful for, but it's more useful than the kinetic armor. Now we are on to Chapter 2, Season 5. Kind of a polarizing season, in my opinion. I feel like there's no in between. You either really liked it or you really didn't like it, and unfortunately, I was on the side of people that did not like it. And part of it was the loot pool. I feel like they just really messed up the loot pool here, and one of those weapons that they messed up was the lever action rifle. The only way that I can explain this weapon is it's essentially like the infantry rifle before it got the buff. Like, I don't know what this weapon is trying to be. Is it trying to be a sniper? Is it trying to be an assault rifle, a marksman rifle, a DMR? Again, I have no idea. The bullet speed was so painfully slow. It was actually like difficult to hit a shot with this weapon. You weren't rewarded that much. I think it was doing like 50 something damage. It was again in that like awkward spot where it seemed like since it uses heavy bullets, they were more kind of intending it to be like a heavy hitting longer range weapon, but with no scope and really slow travel time, it was not easy to hit a shot with this. But then the fire rate was like decently fast, right, with the lever action effect, so that would make me think that you're trying to use it at like mid-range, right? But at that point, just use any other assault rifle. I would consider this to be one of Fortnite's most forgotten about weapons. I have no problem if it never comes back. It was absolutely atrocious. And another absolutely atrocious weapon was Predator's cloaking device. And look, I understand here that they were trying to like still experiment with the invisibility. I think we've seen now, especially with Mysterio's stealth gauntlet, like this is just not it. The invisibility does not work. I remember so many people were so excited for Predator's cloaking device, and not just the device, but what else we were going to get, right? The Predator was a really hyped up collab. It was the secret skin of Chapter 2, Season 5. And I mean, just look one season backwards in Chapter 2, Season 4. We had all these crazy collaboration items, Iron Man's Unibeam. And then we ended up getting the Predator's cloaking device, which made you invisible, but again, it wasn't really working at all. I would say the only place this was useful was probably where it spawned in Stealthy Stronghold, where you had like a ton of foliage, right, and trees and mud, and it was easy to hide. Other than that, I don't really have anything else to say. The invisibility just didn't work. You were too visible using this item. And yeah, that's all I have for Chapter 2, Season 5, but we gotta talk about Chapter 2, Season 6. Because anybody that watches my channel or has watched at least a couple of my last videos knows I absolutely despise Chapter 2, Season 6. It is my least favorite Fortnite season of all time. And you probably saw the thumbnail of this video. I literally put every single weapon in Chapter 2, Season 6 on this list. Of course, that is a little bit of an exaggeration. Like the mechanical shockwave bow, for example, is not bad at all. The spaz, the scar, of course, these weapons are not bad, but I would say like 90% of the primal loot pool deserves to be on this list. I mean, you can literally just throw every single makeshift weapon on here and every single primal weapon on here, except for maybe like the primal SMG or the pre-nerf primal shotgun. Those are the only ones that I think could pass. Every other weapon besides the aforementioned ones deserves to be on this list. It was absolutely terrible. One of the main reasons why I think a lot of people strayed away from this season, including myself, was because the loot pool was terrible. I know some people in the comment section are going to say like I'm biased against Chapter 2, Season 6, or why you hate this season. But even just looking at it, like besides the fact that I hate this season, I think the weapons were like objectively bad. If you took any of the makeshift or primal weapons from Chapter 2, Season 6 and put it in any other season, they would probably be the worst weapons in that season. Look, while yes, I do understand I am a generational Chapter 2, Season 6 hater, I absolutely despise this season, I don't think that there's going to be a ton of argument about this in the comment section below. Like 90% of this loot pool should be on this list. I mean, yeah, that's all I got for Chapter 2, Season 6. I basically put the whole season here. And now we are on to Chapter 2, Season 7, and what a great season, what a great loot pool, but there were a couple of weapons, unfortunately, that were just lacking. And unfortunately, that's just kind of what's going to happen, right? This season was so crazy, so unique, and so wacky with every single item. There were just bound to be a couple items that weren't going to hit the mark, and one of those weapons is the Chimera Ray Gun. Look, simply put it, we have just seen a better version. I think Bender's Shiny Metal Ray Gun does everything the Chimera Ray Gun does better with more damage. It's just not a good weapon. I mean, if you look up the damage, I think it was doing like 7 damage, and it fired like a continuous beam, right, instead of shooting actual bullets. For all of you Chimera Ray Gun fans, I need you guys to try and argue why your weapon with a 135 DPS is good. Guys, we talked about the AUG and the Ocean's Burst Assault Rifle in part 1 of this video. I mean, that thing had a DPS of 140, right? A burst weapon is not supposed to have a better DPS than, I guess, technically a fully auto weapon. Again, like, I have to be honest with you, I don't think this was a weapon that was, like, intended to be really really good, right? All the NPCs, if you guys remember, in like the UFOs and around the map, the NPC aliens carried this weapon. So of course they couldn't make it that good, right? All the NPCs were carrying it. So for that reason, I do end up cutting it a lot of slack. So it kind of hurts to put it on this list, but yeah, it is a really poor weapon. And my second selection from Chapter 2, Season 7, I was really between either the Propifier and the Gravitron. And I know those are two fan favorite weapons, so I'm sure I'm going to get ripped in the comments for this, but I really just had to put them up against each other. Which weapon would I rather use? And I would have rather used the Propifier. I feel like at least it has some benefit, right? The Gravitron, I feel like, has no benefits. I mean, I don't even know if I have like 5 kills with this thing in my entire life, and I grinded Chapter 2, Season 7. The Gravitron was just not it. Like, don't get me wrong here. I think it is a super fun weapon. It's so unique. Being able to pick up literally anything and just throw it like across a POI is so fun, right? It's so goofy. But in terms of like practical weapons that I'm going to take up an inventory slot for and use to, let's say, take to endgame with me or something, yeah, the Gravitron is not one of them. And again, I know I keep bringing it up, but the Chapter 2 Season 7 loot pool was so loaded, right? Pulse rifle, railgun, recon scanner. You had all these great weapons to take, and I feel like the Gravitron really just fell to the bottom. Like, it's one of those things where I kind of pinned them up against other weapons in the season. I was like, would I take the Gravitron? No. Would I take the Gravitron? No. Would I take the Gravitron? No. And I was like, okay, yeah, this thing was pretty bad. Again, it was fun. I don't knock them for being creative and coming up with unique weapons, but just missed the mark here for me. And we have finally made it all the way to Chapter 2, Season 8, and I feel like this weapons loot pool, for the most part, was pretty tame, but in terms of new weapons that were added, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious. Paper Bomb Kunai has to be here. I actually really entirely forgot that this thing was added in Chapter 2, but yeah, again, this was another one of those collaboration mythics that just was not good. It only did 35 damage, and you could only stack 6. That essentially means if someone is at full health, you have to hit, what, 5 at the minimum to kill somebody? No, that's actually a lie. I suck at math. You actually had to hit all 6, right? So you had to first find 6 of them, and then if somebody was at 200 health, you would have to hit all 6 to kill somebody. Now, obviously, you're really never going to go through with that. You might throw 3 or 4 of them to break the box and then jump into it, right? You're not going to really use them to, I guess, do a ton of damage. Maybe just some chip damage to open a fight or to end a fight. They basically kind of acted like the explosive batarangs, where they would like attach to a surface and then explode right after, and they would deal like a damage in a small radius. It really wasn't a big area of effect. I guess the main kind of calling card here was that if it was in close proximity to somebody, it will just explode midair, right? There's no like fuse on it like a regular grenade, and it could lock on to opponents if you threw it close enough to them. And while I feel like some of this list has been controversial, I don't think this one is. I don't think there's going to be many arguments, and while you might like this weapon and like the collaboration and the franchise that it comes with, of course, you can't argue that it really was not great. And yeah, guys, that is my list for some of the worst weapons in all of Chapter 2. Of course, there are 8 seasons and hundreds of weapons, so this list was really tough to make. So let me know in the comment section if you agree, if you disagree, where do you think I went wrong? If you guys went on to enjoy this video and are excited for the Chapter 1 ranking, because that is going to be absolutely insane, be sure to leave this video a like, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.